My name is Marcelous and this is LycanNerdtv. I would love to welcome you to the first episode of 2021. Before we get started, I want you all to give yourself a hug for getting through 2020. It was scary, I know. Alright? I would like to also bring to your attention the new Lycan Nerd merch. I got the Cascade Blue Cloud with Lycan Nerd written on there. And you know I had to put the logo on the back. You can check that out at LycanNerd.com. Also, I'm a part of the Most Extreme Ranking Challenge podcast, hosted by Tyler the Creator. Why did I call him Tyler the Creator? No, it's hosted by regular Tyler. It's also co-hosted by Matt from NerdyBit, Lamar the Con Guy, who's at every con. I swear he has like 20 shows at every con. And I'm a part of them shows. Yeah. And me, yours truly, Marcelous from LycanNerdtv. So check that out at thegrandgeekgathering.com. And you also can go to nerdybit.com for different nerdy clothing accessories. And if you want any of my merch or you want to check out links to the podcast, you can go to LycanNerd.com. Now that that's out the way, I need you to subscribe to LycanNerdtv because this is the only way I'm feeding my son. You saw Remy, he's cute. Come on, put some money in my pocket. Please? Pretty please? With all the new developments coming in from Spider-Man 3, everybody's extremely excited. They are pretty much telling us that we're going to get into the Spider-Verse on a live action scale, which is amazing. But it's disappointing to fans like me because what happened with Miles Morales. And if you don't know, I'll give you some background. Now, I'm still excited, but at the same time, I am not for this movie. I don't think it's going to be all that great. And it's for these reasons why I didn't really enjoy the last two movies. They were okay. There's nothing against Tom Holland. There's nothing against Marvel. I don't know who did this, so I can't really point any fingers. It's probably some producers or some shadowy figure in the background somewhere pulling the strings of Marvel's background. I don't know. But I know I'm not blaming Stan Lee. It's not his fault. In fact, I'm going to give my hats off to him because I don't think something like this would have happened if Stan Lee was still around and doing what he does. Everyone knows that we're already getting two of the previous Spider-Mans in the next Spider-Man. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield have signed back on. We also have some villains, Dr. Octopus, Electro, I think they said two different J. Jonah Jamesons is going to be in it. And everyone's really excited because of Into the Spider-Verse. Everybody loved this animated movie starring Miles Morales, which is the Black Spider-Man. I don't know if I have to say that or not. And I won't even say he's the Black Spider-Man. He's the interracial Spider-Man. He's Black and Hispanic, and he represents for both sides very well, mind you. Spider-Verse was the biggest Spider-Man movie ever. I don't think anybody would argue with me that that's their favorite Spider-Man. You might hold a special place in your heart for the original Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. You might love the Andrew Garfield, which I love the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man because they did the Gwen Stacy storyline. And that is one of my favorite storylines throughout Spider-Man. It shows some realness. It just, yeah. After Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was getting capped and they were just like, look, we're not going to do another one. We didn't make as much money as we wanted to. There was rumors going around that they were going to do a Miles Morales Spider-Man. And this is a long time ago. This is a while ago. When these rumors were flying around, people put out that Donald Glover would be the perfect nerdy black guy to play a Miles Morales, a Black Spider-Man. And he came out, he was like, yeah, I would love to play Spider-Man. It seemed like it was going into development through production, and then it got just canned. Everybody, I'm going to tell you the truth. As a black man, I saw what happened online. There was a group of people that were like, yeah, we love Miles Morales, he's dope, we want to see this. And then there was a group of people that was just like, Spider-Man isn't black, he's white, F you, if you do this, we're boycotting it. And it was to such a degree, this toxic fandom of Marvel that was just like, if you make a black Spider-Man, we're gonna give you hell. So I believe that's what caused the producers to say, look, we're not gonna do this, we're just gonna go on this the same way we've been going. We're going to go to younger Spider-Man. We're going to do Tom Holland. And that's how we got the original Spider-Man. So in essence, they were originally going to do Miles Morales' Spider-Man before they did this Tom Holland Spider-Man. But they were bullied by a toxic fandom to not make this movie. I have no problem with that. I understand because that's where their money comes from. So they didn't want to jeopardize putting out a movie that wouldn't make a lot of money. Now, I have to explain something about Marvel movies and the MCU. The MCU is its own universe, and that's how you have to look at it. It's not necessarily based off of anything in the comics, like one straight line. It's based off a lot of things that happened in the comics. And if you look at it as its own universe, you'll feel much better as a comic book fan. That's how I look at it. Within the comic books, there's several different universes and timelines. The 616 is the main timeline. That's where you have your regular Peter Parker, your regular Spider-Man, your regular stories that branched off into alternate parallel universes and other storylines. A storyline that's heavily based in the Marvel MCU universe is the Ultimate Universe. There's an Ultimate Universe of Marvel Comics. They did the Spider-Man, they did X-Men, they did Avengers. At one point, I think it was like early 2000s, maybe at some point in 2000s, Marvel said, look, we want to try and make a real version of this and that, of our traditional characters so that they can be appealing to the new youth and the new people, the next generation. And it worked to a certain extent. Some of the older people jumped on with the new stuff because the storylines were different and great. And some of the older people just didn't like it. And it was just more of a mix of the older, some of the older, and a lot of the new. Fast forward to when the MCU is trying to make itself out there. Now I'm not talking about old Blade movies, old Punisher movies, any of the old Captain America or Thor's. I'm talking about MCU, Iron Man. That's where we started off, and then we get into the Avengers. They loosely based those movies off the ultimate versions of these of the comics. You can ask anybody that knows anything about comics, it's the truth. Within that sense, the ultimate version of Spider-Man, you saw it in Into the Spider-Verse. He dies and Miles Morales takes over. So a lot of people thought that that wasn't going to work, but it worked. It worked so well in the comics that they start pushing it into other mediums as far as cartoons. Now, I've noticed that DC and Marvel uses cartoons to test certain things. They'll put a cartoon movie out that has certain aspects that they want to put into live action. If it sells and if it does well, then they'll put it into the live action aspect because they know that it's going to work. They did this with Miles Morales. They started off with Spider-Man cartoons, and they just start branching them out into more and more. And then when the Secret Wars 2 event happened, they merged the 616 and the Ultimate Universe, making Miles Morales one of the mainstream Spider-Mans, which still worked really well. Sold like crazy, everybody loved it. To the extent that they made Into the Spider-Verse. They did it in comics first, and then they made a cartoon movie of Into the Spider-Verse. Now, they were just gambling. They was just throwing the dice out there, and they gambled wonderfully. It did so freaking well. It did better than any of their live actions. People embraced this and loved this just different storyline where you were able to bridge all the different Spider-Mans into one. Cartoon Miles Morales did it again. Now, if you're not following along, he did it great. Miles Morales did a great thing in the comics, and that's what made them want to put him into the cartoons, into movies. But because of the bullying, they couldn't do it. And then, once again, he did it again with the cartoons. Comics into cartoons breaks the banks. Now, instead of them giving a live-action Miles Morales movie, they took everything from Miles Morales and copied it and put it onto Peter Parker.